Welcome back to Fiction First. Today, we're diving into one of the most haunting psychological thrillers of 2025, Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. This chilling, multi-layered novel was published by Flatiron Books in January 2025 and has quickly become one of the most talked about books of the year. It's a story steeped in mystery, trauma, and psychological horror, set against the eerie backdrop of a fictional Scottish island. Told from dual perspectives, Beautiful Ugly follows the unraveling mind of novelist Grady Green and his missing wife, Abby Goldman. With elements of gothic suspense, unreliable narration, and psychological manipulation, this novel asks its readers to question what is real, what is fiction, and how far someone will go to uncover or bury the truth about the author. Alice Feeney is no stranger to the psychological thriller genre. A New York Times million-copy best-selling author, Feeney's previous works include His and Hers, Sometimes I Lie, Rock, Paper, Scissors, and Daisy Darker. Her novels have been translated into more than 35 languages and are known for their intricate plots, twisted characters, and chilling conclusions. Before becoming a full-time novelist, Feeney was a BBC journalist for 15 years. That journalistic background lends authenticity and sharpness to her storytelling, especially in Beautiful Ugly, where one of the central characters is an investigative journalist. Several of her books have been optioned for screen adaptations, and His and Hers is currently in production for Netflix with Jessica Chastain producing and starring Tessa Thompson and John Bernthal. Feeney's knack for crafting unreliable narrators and labyrinthine narratives is on full display in Beautiful Ugly, cementing her reputation as a master of psychological suspense. Plot summary. Beautiful Ugly is told from the first-person perspectives of Grady Green and Abby Goldman. The story opens in London, where Grady, a best-selling author, anxiously awaits his wife Abby's return from work. She calls him from the road, saying she's stopped for a body lying in the street. Then the call goes dead, and Abby is gone. A year later, Grady is a wreck, creatively blocked, emotionally shattered, and living in limbo. His agent, Kitty Goldman, who also happens to be Abby's godmother, offers him a lifeline: a remote cabin on the fictional Isle of Amberley, once owned by the late author Charles Whittaker. With nothing left to lose, Grady heads to the island with his loyal dog, Columbo. From the start, Amberley feels off. Grady is welcomed by Sandy McIntyre, the island's ferry operator and de facto sheriff. The island has only 25 residents, a strict anti-tourist policy, and an uncanny air of secrecy. Grady begins seeing women who look like Abby and hears strange sounds in the night. The atmosphere is thick with unease. Grady soon discovers an unpublished manuscript written by Charles Whittaker. He becomes obsessed with it, even going so far as to plagiarize it and send it to Kitty as his own. As Grady spirals into a writing frenzy, the island seems to close in around him. Locals act strangely. He finds Abby's handwriting in the margins of one of his books. Old tapes reveal Abby's voice, recounting fears of being watched. Eventually, Grady sees a woman he believes to be Abby. She calls herself Aubrey Fairlight, lives with her wife Travers, and has a daughter. But as the layers peel away, the terrifying truth emerges: she is Abby. She survived the night Grady tried to kill her, throwing her over a cliff, and returned to the island where she grew up. Abby's revelation is a bombshell. She was pregnant, planning to leave Grady, and had faked her disappearance to escape his emotional control. Kitty and Sandy force Grady to stay on the island, where he becomes the island's resident author, with all book proceeds funding the community. Grady accepts this fate, believing he's found peace. But in a chilling final twist, the islanders bury him alive, sealing his fate, and the story. Themes and symbols. The psychological effects of isolation. Grady claims to prefer solitude, believing it essential to his craft. But as he isolates himself, both emotionally and physically, his grasp on reality begins to erode. His descent into madness is accelerated by his isolation on Amberley, echoing classic Gothic tropes, where remote settings become mirrors for fractured psyches. The erosion of memory and identity. As the narrative progresses, Grady's certainty in his memories and sense of self unravel. He begins to question whether he actually tried to kill Abby, or if he's being manipulated. This uncertainty speaks to the fragility of identity and the power of trauma to distort perception. Manipulation and the silence of truth. Abby's tapes and clues suggest she was manipulated and gaslit long before her disappearance. The Islanders, too, engage in manipulation, shaping truths, concealing secrets, and ultimately orchestrating Grady's downfall. Silence becomes a recurring motif, dolls with sewn mouths, buried histories, and the absence of Abby's voice until the very end. Love, obsession, and control. Grady's journey blurs the line between love and obsession. His need to find Abby becomes an all-consuming quest, overshadowing any self-awareness or growth. Abby, in contrast, fights to reclaim control of her own narrative, redefining herself on her own terms. Their relationship, once romantic, is revealed to be deeply dysfunctional. The Isle of Amberley as symbol. At first, Amberley represents hope and creative rebirth. Grady sees it as a blank slate, but the island soon reveals its darker layers. It's also a place of exile, secrecy, and judgment. For the women who inhabit it, Amberley is a refuge, but for Grady, it becomes a prison, both metaphorically and literally. Ghost trees and dolls. Feeney uses rich symbolism throughout the novel. The ghost trees are markers of trauma and loss, their haunting presence a constant reminder of buried truths. The dolls with sewn mouths represent silenced voices, particularly those of women. These elements add a Gothic texture to the story's psychological tension. Character analysis. Grady Green. Grady is a classic, unreliable narrator, charming on the surface, but emotionally fragile and deeply flawed. His self-perception as a grieving husband clashes with the clues Abby leaves behind. As readers, we're left to decide whether Grady is a villain, a victim, or both. His downward spiral is central to the novel's impact. Abby Goldman. Although absent for much of the narrative, Abby is the novel's true catalyst. Her strength, intelligence, and desperation are revealed piece by piece, until we see her not as a victim, but as a survivor. Her tapes, writings, and eventual confrontation with Grady show her reclaiming her story. Sandy McIntyre. Sandy is the island's moral compass, or so she believes. As ferry operator and sheriff, she controls who enters and leaves Amberley. Her loyalty lies with the women of the island, and she becomes a key force in delivering justice to Grady. Kitty Goldman. Kitty plays a dual role, as Grady's literary agent and Abby's godmother. While she initially appears as a supportive figure, she ultimately orchestrates Grady's entrapment, prioritizing Abby's safety and the island's well-being over professional loyalty. Mira. Mira, a quiet island resident in a red coat, serves as a red herring. Grady's fixation on her reflects his growing paranoia. Her ambiguous role enhances the atmosphere of mistrust and illusion. Charles Whittaker. Though deceased, Charles's presence haunts the story. His unpublished manuscript becomes the fulcrum of Grady's guilt and eventual downfall. His mysterious death and the secrets he left behind add another layer of intrigue. Why you should read Beautiful Ugly. Alice Feeney's Beautiful Ugly is a masterclass in psychological suspense that blurs the lines between love and obsession, truth and deception, reality and delusion. If you're drawn to stories that immerse you in a deeply atmospheric setting, this novel delivers with the hauntingly isolated Isle of Amberley, a character in its own right. shrouded in fog, folklore, and secrets. The book's structure, alternating between the haunting aftermath of Abby's disappearance and the slow unraveling of her hidden life, keeps the narrative sharp, compelling, and unpredictable. Readers who enjoy layered mysteries will appreciate how Feeney weaves memory, trauma, and manipulation into a disturbing, yet poignant exploration of a fractured marriage. Grady's descent into paranoia and self-doubt forces us to constantly question the reliability of what we see and hear, and the final twist is both satisfying and chilling, with rich symbolism, gothic undertones, and a plot full of misdirection. Beautiful Ugly isn't just a thriller. It's a psychological excavation of how the stories we tell ourselves can destroy or save us. For fans of Gillian Flynn, Tana French, or Feeney's earlier works, this novel is a must-read. In conclusion, Beautiful Ugly is a dark, gripping psychological thriller that lingers in the mind long after the final page. Alice Feeney has delivered a haunting meditation on love, guilt, identity, and justice. If you're a fan of atmospheric suspense with emotional depth, this is a book you don't want to miss. Thanks for watching Fiction First. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more in-depth book discussions. Let us know, what do you think about Beautiful Ugly? Check the link in the description to grab your copy today. Until next time, happy reading.